Hi, this is Ankur Patel from Dell, and today I'm going to show you how to install the Unity CSI driver version 1.4. So I'll send a link to the actual product guide that lists the step-by-step instructions, but here's a preview of what it looks like. So we'll go through this document as we go through the installation. So it'll list all the capabilities and what is supported, and it'll give you a bit of an overview of what we're about to do. So from a prerequisite standpoint, we got to make sure Docker and Kubernetes are installed. We got to have Helm, and then one of the supported protocols for storage connectivity. So we'll start with the Docker service that we have to configure. And we'll go and edit the file that it states. And you can see that I have made this update. So we have to do this on every node. So I've got a two-node system. So then it's going to ask us to reload the service. And of course, we have to do this on both. So next we have to actually go and download the files. So we do have all the files on Git. So if we do a simple git clone and this address, you'll be able to do that. I've already done this, so we won't need to do it now. So next we have to create a namespace called Unity. And again, I've already done this, so you can see the namespace there. The next section just talks about this values file that the installer is going to use for certain parameters. So, IP addresses, different parameters you may want to use, like number of nodes, things like that. So it'll ask us to copy this values file into the same directory as the CSI installer, and then make edits to it. So that's the file that we will be editing. So if we go into the CSI Unity folder, the original values.yaml files there. So we just have to make a copy of that into the folder you saw before that has the installer. So here's the command to do that. So next we're going to go and actually edit the file. So here are all the different parameters that you can edit, and we will take a look at those. So in here, again, are just going to be specific parameters that you may want to change. Something like a file system type. Do you want thin provisions? Just some specific parameters. But the important stuff is down here at the storage array list. So the first thing you'll want is the serial number of the Unity. So if you log into your Unity, you can easily find the serial number. So you want to make sure that matches. And then the other thing that's important is the storage pool. So you have to actually find the storage pool via the column that says CLI ID on the right, not the actual pool name. So make sure you match that. And then the protocol, right? So in my case, I'm going to be using iSCSI, so just comment out the other two. And the only other thing that we will want to change it in my configuration is the controller count. So since I have two nodes, I want to change this to one. By default, it's two. So if you only have a two-node system, you'll get an error. So in the product guide, you'll see an example of another my values.yaml, so you can see some of the different parameters that people use. Next thing is we want to create an empty secret. So the empty secret.yaml file is already there. You just have to execute the command. So just execute that kubectl create -f empty secret.yaml. So next, there is a JSON file that basically has all the access credentials for the array. If you have multiple arrays, you'll have multiple sections here, but in my case, I have a single array, so we'll take a look at that real quick. So again, username, password, any IP address, the array serial number, and then here's the command you would use. If you want to update it, so in my case, I make changes, I would issue this second command here. So for the next part, you'll just want to execute these three kubectl apply commands. This is for snapshots. The next two lines below it, we won't execute now. We'll just tag it on to the end as part of the as part of a parameter for the install. So I've already created those first three. So here's the example of the options for the CSI installer. So the main things here are the namespace, the values, and then the snapshot -crd, which will create the equivalent of those last two lines. So once you kick off the installer, it'll just go through and create the necessary pods on the different nodes. It'll ask for the root password. It'll ask for the password for any other node that you have outside the primary. So once it's done, you can take a look at all the pods in the Unity namespace, and you'll see the ones that it creates. So we got a couple of pods here, and then if you take a look at all the pods in the default namespace, you'll see the pod that it uses for snapshotting. So if we go back to the Unity, you will see the host that we have. So we'll be using this host for our demonstration to show how this CSI driver works. So see you in a second. So next we'll actually test the driver out. So as part of the Git package, you will have a sample.yaml. So if we look in there, you just have to uncomment sections you don't want. So it's going to have a namespace called test unity. We're doing a persistent volume claim, and it's going to get a 12 gig volume. We're going to use the Unity iSCSI storage class. And if you look down here, this is the actual container. So you can see the mount path that we're using, and you can see that the names match pvol1. And if we go down to the actual persistent volume claim, you can see that that name matches as well. So now we'll just do an apply. And now we'll check on the status of the pod. You can see that it's pending. We'll give it some time, run the command a couple more times, and after about a couple minutes, it's done. So we can see that it's running. If I go back to my Unity, you can see the 12 gig volume that has been created. So now we'll actually log into the container itself. So if we look at the different mounts, you'll see that the data one that we saw in the sample.yaml is there. It's the proper size. And just for fun, we'll create a small file in there. And now that we're done, we will go and delete this pod. So once that's done, if we go back to the Unity, we will see that the volume is gone. But first we'll take a look at Kubernetes, make sure that there's no persistent volumes or volume claims anymore. And if we refresh, you can see that's gone. All right, well, thank you for your time.